indigo dyeing. An almost magical process that enables you to turn pretty much anything blue. Cotton, linen, silk, wool, hey, even wood. But in order to actually turn indigo into a dye, it requires a special process. We need to make a vat. And when I first got into dyeing, I thought a vat looked really complicated. There are several different types. Some are almost poisonous or take a long time to set up. There are a lot of factors, but not all indigo vats are like that. Today we're going to go over how to make a 1-2-3 sucrose vat. Safe, fast, and easy. Quite amazing. This is the video I wish I had when I first started dyeing. When you get started on natural dyeing, you get used to this really slow, kind of methodical process, gathering, mordanting, heating everything, and then, finally getting a little bit of pigment on your fabric, and it's so exciting. But you finally get introduced to indigo and you're like, this is almost cheating, right? How can it be so fast? How can it be so immediate? How can you get such spectacular results? It is so much fun. So today we're gonna do an indigo vat, the vat that I am familiar with, which is the 1-2-3 sucrose vat. It is very safe, very easy. I'm waiting right now for my water to come to temperature. I got hot tap water, which from me was 132 degrees. I'm waiting for it to come up to about 180 degrees, which is quite hot. So what do we need? A pot or a bucket, indigo powder, calcium hydroxide, slaked lime, fructose, I'm using sucrose, a scale, a spoon or stick to stir with, gloves, a thermometer, pH meter, nice but not necessary, glasses and a mask when measuring the powders. My limiting factor here is the amount of sucrose that I have. 107 to say 100 grams of sucrose. We have a very simple formula. Since we have 100 grams of sugar, we have 1 part indigo, 2 part lime, and 3 parts sucrose. 50 grams of the calcium hydroxide and 25 grams of indigo. So for my calcium hydroxide, here's a jar of small little pebbles, rocks that I used in the past. Put my indigo in here, so I need 25 grams of indigo. 3, 4. So I have all of my ingredients. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm using my regular big pot for this that I use for all of my dyeing, all my mordanting. It's my one pot. Some people use like a 5-gallon bucket, which is cool. But the one negative about that is you kind of need, if you wanted to reheat your indigo vat for whatever reason, you need like a stick heater or an immersion heater. I don't have that. So if I wanted to, for some reason, to reheat it, it's nice to actually have it in the pot that you can use. Now I can hear it, the temperature is coming up. You can just hear it. In the past, a few times, I have actually made this with not this hot water, like 140, and it has actually been fine. That's one thing about this, like nothing is like, oh, this is the only way to do it. There are a lot of variations in like what you can do. A lot of the guides that you're going to see online are going to have really high contents of indigo, lime, and fructose. And I have done this with relatively small amounts in a large amount of water and still gotten good results. Like just not as many dyes, not as many dips. I am at 175 degrees, so we are pretty good. Into my water I'm going to add the calcium hydroxide first, then the sucrose, and then the indigo. Now, you want the indigo to be really well hydrated, really mixed with the water, which is why I have some pebbles in here. When you're working with indigo, also, it's a good idea to not wear clothes that you are particularly precious about. Wear gloves, unless you want your hands to be blue for a while. Next time, I just ran out of my sucrose, my fructose sugar, and I was just kind of doing some research, like what other options are there. if I mean, there are lots of options, but one thing that that I was thinking about that I came across, which was kind of interesting, is you can apparently use brown sugar or white sugar and molasses, which is cheaper and more readily accessible than fructose is by far. So next time I am going to try that. Okay, 178. That's good enough for me. And I made this super bright now so you can kind of see in the water. So we want to make sure we dissolve everything properly. Okay, we're good. Now we're going to add the fructose or the sucrose. Okay, let's add some hot water here. And we're going to close this because sometimes this leaks a little bit. And now I'm just going to shake this completely. Hydrate. I have this, so you can see that it kind of created this flour already. This is this. And it has such an interesting smell, this indigo. I love it, it's so cool. Okay, I'm just gonna put my pebbles back in here. I got all my ingredients mixed, and I'm just gonna slowly stir this for like 2 minutes or something. Make sure everything is nice and combined. And I got a pebble in there. It's okay. So we are just under 170 right now, 167. Let's also check the pH meter right now. So let's just drop this in. So currently we have it's 11.3. So right now this is quite blue. Oh, it's actually starting to get a little bit on the yellow side already. Look at that. Okay, but it's not ready. But that was actually a pretty fast. But what we're looking for is the water to not be blue at all, but to get kind of yellowish. I'm gonna put the lid on this, put it outside and let it sit for a few hours so the temperature drops and this chemical reaction fully takes place. And the other thing I'm gonna do right now is to prep which fabrics I'm using, basically by just soaking them in water so that they are fully hydrated. So when you're dyeing with indigo, one of the coolest things is that your fabric doesn't need to be mordanted. It needs to be washed / scoured. I usually just wash like hot, but it doesn't need to be, you don't need to have prepared it in other ways. Which means you can use old clothing, old fabrics you have around, anything that you think needs a bit of blue, you can throw in there. So one of the main reasons why I'm doing this is because I'm working on my quilt. And I want some blue sections for the back part of the quilt. In general, it's not a good idea to put a huge piece of fabric in the vat. It's a lot easier to deal with slightly smaller pieces. So I'm just going to cut up some slightly more manageable sections, and that way we can dye those individually. I dyed some stuff with goldenrod the other day, so a bunch of yellow, with this idea in mind that we would have some extra fabric. This might be a little too ambitious, all of this stuff. You can always not use it, right? It's also always very cool to have some sort of pinkish fabric to start with, so that you get something more on the violet. I think this is avocado, or it could be acorns, because I got pinkish shades of acorns. Yeah, I think this was actually acorns. I don't know. Okay, I'll check back in a little bit. It has been about 3 hours, so 2.5 hours. We need to not introduce a whole lot of air in here now, so that's the biggest thing. Okay, let's get a piece of fabric. So what I'm trying to do each time is to very carefully bring the fabric into the vat to try to avoid introducing any air bubbles. Then I submerge it and kind of keep moving the fabric around under the surface for about a minute. You need a minute for the color to set properly. Then I squeeze the fabric underneath the surface and to kind of get as much liquid away from the fabric as possible. Then I continue squeezing it into another bucket to try to prevent any drips to fall into the vat. And then of course unfolding it into the air to give it access to oxygen. And then we need to let it sit for 20-30 minutes, and if we want a stronger color we can do subsequent dips for like another minute, etc. And that's how you build a darker color. If you want darker color, is to dip it several times. Although the initial dips are going to produce a stronger color than the subsequent dips.
You know, when you wash it later, it will get lighter, so it's a little bit deceiving. So I'm curious what kind of green we're gonna get, but it's gonna be hard to see until we do a final rinse and it actually dries. Of course, the more we dye, the more air does get introduced in here. I mean, even though I'll try to be careful, but it still will happen. It will get like less effective, and then of course we will use up the pigment in here as well. It is so magical, this though. It is just amazing. It's so much fun. Squeeze it under the water. So now it's getting exposed to the oxygen, and that's what we really get its color here.
So why can't you just mix indigo powder with water like we do with other dyes? Well, indigo in its blue form actually isn't soluble. It behaves more like a pigment than a dye. The molecules are too large to penetrate the fiber, so the color just sits on the surface and washes right off. To make indigo work, we first have to change its chemistry. The lime creates an alkaline environment, and the fructose removes oxygen from the indigo molecule. This converts it into a soluble form that can dissolve in the vat. When you dip the fabric, this dissolved indigo soaks into the fiber. Then, when you pull it out and it hits the air, oxygen reattaches to the molecule and it turns blue. That's oxidation, and now the color is locked into the fiber. So that's pretty wild.
Trying to kind of like move it around a little bit so it down like underneath, so all the parts get kind of, you know, touched or evenly, like it gets distributed. I also don't mind if it is not perfectly like one color, you know. You can definitely see that it's starting to get lighter now. It's not taking on as dark a color right away. I must say I'm getting like some really good pigment. Everything is coming out quite dark. Very nice. Very happy with the results so far. I'm just debating about how many of these I'm going to put in for a second dip. I got such a cool result from the pink. I was trying to find more pink fabric. This is avocado. You get almost like a little bit, oh my god, I still have pigment left. I should probably like soak a lot of these other fabrics twice, but it's a lot more fun to find other fabrics that you can give some color to. Now some of these I will soak again, but I'm surprised how much color I'm getting from this one vat. quite a bit. So I'm just gonna exhaust it. I'm gonna use it until there's basically nothing left, and then I'm gonna dispose of it. I'm not gonna keep it around, you know, and keep it going, because this is my one pot, you know, so I need it for other things. Like sometimes I have tried to do dips less than a minute, and you can get like less color, which is cool sometimes if you want to do like an over dye, but then it doesn't stay as much, which is fine sometimes depending on what you're making with it, you know. If you're making something like a wall hanging quilt or something where you're not going to wash it a lot, then that's fine. But if you're doing something where you will wash it over time, you do want to like make sure the color actually like sticks around through repeated washings. But like here, this is kind of what I'm getting right now. It's more like it gets this kind of dark bluish, dusty pinkish kind of color, like a grayish. I love that. I think that is so cool. So let's do this one again. So I just finished. I just measured how much fabric I was able to dye. Hands are all blue. Turns out I dyed a little over 8 yards of fabric from this one vat in all different shades. I ended up going through all of the different fabrics once, and then I started back over again and gave them all a second dip. I'm not sure exactly how good the second dip was towards the end, how much benefit it was really giving. But in here now I have a combination of just pure blue, a whole bunch of greens, and a little bit of a kind of purplish grayish color, which I really like. Mostly just cotton. I did 1 piece of linen, 2 pieces of linen, because that's what I had to work with right now. Although I have to say my favorite is really dyeing linen with indigo, because just the shades you get are so beautiful. And what's so great is if you're doing a vat and then you're like, oh wow, I have more pigment, you can just go through your closet and like, oh, anything that needs a little freshen up, you know, and throw it in there. You don't have to prepare it in any way, you know, kitchen towels, things like that. Soon everything in your house will be blue. In the past, once I made the mistake of washing the fabrics right after dyeing them with indigo, like right away when they were still wet, I threw them in the wash machine. And the fabric, the color was reduced quite dramatically. So you don't want to do that. After some research, I have learned that you need to wait at least 12 hours, you know, about 24. I waited 24 hours to wash them here. And the color, I didn't have much washing out at all. And also I had only washed this fabric beforehand. I hadn't even scoured it. I mean, if you want to go ahead and scour your fabrics, go for it. I often skip that step, especially when it comes to indigo dyeing. But I was surprised how true the colors stayed after washing them in the washing machine. And I just did it on warm with a little bit of mild detergent and also a little splash of white vinegar in it. So what I love about this is just how simple this is. Safe, simple, not that much guesswork, kind of hard to mess up, you know? There's just a few things that you need to keep in mind, like the temperature and introducing everything the right way, and then trying not to get too much air incorporated as you go through it. Although towards the end you will have incorporated more and more air. Even no matter how careful you are gonna get it in there. It's gonna, you know, there are gonna be bubbles coming up. So just, you know, I just try to be as careful as I can, but it is what it is, right? But I'm so happy about the colors. They look so awesome. So they're just hanging out there drying now. So let me know if you have any questions about this in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Let me know if you are working on any projects, if you are dyeing any fabric or anything else. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye. I'm gonna have blue hands for a little while, but that's okay.